أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين اللهم افتح إلينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to is it session 5, class 5 on logic. So inshallah we'll start with, as usual, the Hikam, and we'll do a few of those. I think I only have about 5 that have been outlined today from number we stopped at 26, so we'll do from number 27 up until we stopped at 27, so we'll start from 28 till 31. We'll do those 4 for now, because from 32, there's a slightly different theme that he goes into, so I'd like to just capture this where it is. So he says in number 28, okay. ما استودع في غيب السرائر ظهر في شهادة الظواهر. ما استودع في غيب السرائر ظهر في شهادة الظواهر. He says, what has been entrusted or sort of placed in the unseen of the consciousness, the heart. Sarair also means secrets, which is that innermost dimension of the human being where the secret is kept. That's one of the reasons, the synonymic terms that are used with things like consciousness and the heart. It's a place of secrets. So what has been placed or entrusted in the innermost, the unseen of the consciousness, ظهر في شهادة الظواهر, is manifested in the scene of what you would call the phenomenal world, the physical and the material. What is placed inside is what manifests external. This goes back to that hadith, that prime hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are only contingent on the intentions, and the actions are the manifested in the physical world. The intentions are what reside in the innermost. And this is why you never know what another person intends to do, what they're really concocting within themselves. I use that word concocting both in the positive and the negative sense. You know, what you are formulating in your thought. It is your innermost. And this is why anything that is external is contingent on the internal. Whatever's manifesting external to you is reliant on what is internal. One of the Arab proverbs says, Al-lisanu tarjumanul qalb. The tongue is the translator of the heart. The tongue does not interpret, it doesn't change, it doesn't alter, it doesn't do any other thing other than saying what is in the heart. And it is a translator because the language that is internal is different from the language that takes on this external form of sound and word and resonance. The semantic form of language is different from the internal language. That's why it is translating, but it is just translating. It's telling you exactly what is inside. So the actions that you manifest externally are not just random. They're not just causal effectual. They are traced back. You can trace them back to an internal configuration. So what you manifest externally, when you make a mistake, when you make an error, this is why the prime recommendation is self-reflection. What did you originally intend should happen? Things will happen externally, but it all traces back to the internal. Now, he makes a distinction now between two categories of people when it comes to this, because both categories of people, they have an internal state which then manifests into an external state. Now he's going to explain these two categories of people. So he says, شتان بين من يستدل به وبين من يستدل عليه. Shattana, what a difference it is, what a contrast between man yastadillu bihi, istidalla yani to sort of infer or to derive, to draw an understanding. Essentially what we will be doing now when we start the text on Isagoji, the prime comprehension, the formulation of a judgment, and then an argument and a reason, what the mind does in terms of understanding a thing. There's a difference between the one who does this inferential, this deliberation by Allah. He looks at creation through a divine lens. One who understands what is the manifest through the lens that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided. And the one who confers or deliberates upon Allah through His creation. It's a very, very subtle difference. Do you understand divinity as divinity is meant to be understood, or do you understand divinity based on what you project it to be? And this is a common error. It's almost like by default people do this. I've seen Muslims do this. You know, they'll look at some scientific discovery takes place. Oh, scientists have discovered Big Bang Theory now. So Muslims will start going into the Mus'haf. Look for the ayah. See, there it is. Allah is saying Big Bang Theory. See, the Quran predicted it 1400 years. This is what Muslims do. They project an external understanding on to divinity rather than derive understanding through divinity. Actually he's going to explain that, so let me go through it. فَالْمُسْتَدِلُّ بِهِ عَرَفَ الْحَقَّ لِأَهْلِهِ وَأَثْبَتَ الْأَمْرَ مِنْ وُجُودِ أَصْلِهِ. The one who confers by Allah, meaning the one who looks at reality and understands it through the lens of divinity, is the one who understands the reality of its qualification, yani its quality, and ascertains the amr from the existence of its origin. How did it come to be? Is able to ascertain and look at the contingency back to its source origin. Where did the amr come from? This is the one who is looking at reality through the divine lens. And as for the other one, وَالِاسْتِدْلَالُ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ عَدَمِ الْوُصُولِ إِلَيْهِ. Inference or derivation upon Allah through His creation. You see, they start doing their scientific research and start doing, quantum mechanics, and they go and they look for the God particle or string theory in order to now determine the existence of God. Is it real? Is it true? Can we determine it? Or can we disprove it through that? That's the technique, going the other way around. That is min adamil wusuli ilahi. That is from a void, an absence of understanding Him, of not really understanding who He is. In other words, projecting your understanding of what God should be, instead of understanding who God is as He is. So he says, wa illa, elseways, if you were to take this latter position into consideration, mata ghaba hatta yastadalla alayhi. When was he absent such that inference had to be made upon him? When was he not there such that you had to figure out, you had to derive some sort of reasoning to figure out who God is? When has He ever been absent so that you had to do this to figure Him out? Is it real? Is it not real? وَمَتَى بَعُدَ حَتَّى تَكُونَ الْآثَارُ هِيَ الَّتِي توصل إليه. And when was he distant? Such that the athar, the traces of this reality of this world, these are the ones that must be used to arrive to him. In other words, when was he absent such that he has to be substantiated through created things? Yani, if you have a physical, tangible proof of the existence of God, then and only then can you ascertain the existence of God. If science comes up with the theory and then gives you, and that's when you actually go in the Quran and you see, oh, look, the Quran says this, subhanallah, my iman has increased now. Is that really what you see, this is why I said it's a very subtle difference between the two. And yet he says it's a vast contrast. When was he distanced such that created things should be the ones to take you to God? When was he so distant? Remember, we did this in Imam al-Ghazali's text, the Kimya, the second last section. He talked about 3 things you need to remember about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His attributes insofar as the psychology of the human being is concerned. The first one that he said was, everything that He has created perfectly with no defect whatsoever. And that He is the one who has originated and He is the one who can recreate it if He wants. The second thing he said, that He, Allah, is never detached or distanced from His creation. He is always like a murabbib who is always engaged every moment and every aspect of His creation, right down to the particulates. He is always hadir. He is always dhahir. He is present. So when was He absent that you needed to do this? You needed to go through a scientific method in order to arrive at that understanding. There was an interesting incident that happened with Fakhruddin al-Razi. He had gone to some village or something, and he was a famous scholar, so there was a whole crowd gathered around him. And this old woman who was passing by, and she just asked, like, who is that? Who is this person? So one of the young boys said, don't you know who that is? That's Imam al-Razi, Fakhruddin al-Razi. That's okay, so who is he? He said, he's the one who has 1,000 proofs for the existence of God. And the old woman just shook her head and said, if he needed 1,000 proofs, he must have had 1,000 doubts. When al-Razi heard this, he said, beware the faith of old women. You see, without anything to substantiate, without having to do any of that, to just believe that God exists, is to be indirect, is to be in His presence directly, without any mediation per se. That's why he then says in the next Hikam, number 30, he gives you now the classifications of these two groups. And he's using an ayah from the Quran, Surah Al-Talaq. He says, لِيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِّن سَعَتِهِ. This category, let him spend, the one who has the means, let him spend of his means. This group of people are al-wasiluna ilayhi. These are the ones who have attained closeness with Him. وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ. The second category, he whose provision has been restricted from him. These ones are as-sa'iruna ilayhi. These ones are the ones who are journeying towards Him. Go back to the first aphorism where he said, dependency on your deeds. These are people who are dependent. The first ones are independent. In the next aphorism, he now explains more about these. He says, اهتدى الراحلون إليه بأنوار التوجه. الراحلون are the same as as-sa'irun, the ones who are journeying. The guided are the ones who are migrating, who are journeying towards Him with the lights of orientation, the lights that give them a realization of reality. You see, the light is Imam al-Ghazali in his kitab, what is it called? Mishkat al-Anwar. Inshallah, that would be a more advanced text to do in psychology. Mishkat al-Anwar, these are the lights from which you gain an understanding of a thing. Each thing has its light. what you would call the essence, the jawhar, or the substance of it. When we do the the 10 categories in the Isaguji, you will understand. To arrive at the whatness of a thing, that thing is a light in itself. So these are the people who are dependent on unraveling through reality. They are journeying towards Him. Now, all of humanity is journeying towards Him. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Everyone is, we all come from Allah, we are all returning back to Him. So everyone is journeying, even though atheist and the kafir and the one who's going this way and that way, we're all headed towards the same destination. So there are two categories here. There are those who have attained closeness to Him, and there are those who are still journeying towards Him. Some are far ahead, some are lagging behind, and some have gone astray, but they can still find their way back. So these ones are guided by these lights, and they are dependent on these lights these are the indicators, the signs that Allah puts in the place to show them to head in this direction. وَالْوَاصِلُونَ لَهُمْ أَنْوَارُ الْمُوَاجَهَةِ. Those who have attained closeness to Him, those who have arrived, to them are the lights of face-to-face confrontation. They are in the divine presence. They are in the light. They are enlightened, you would call them. As for the first category, the Sa'irun or the Rahilun, those who are journeying towards Him, they, where is it? فَالْأَوَّلُونَ لِلْأَنْوَارِ. As for the first category, they are dependent on the lights. If the lights are not there, they are lost. You see, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the light, He leaves them in the darkness. يَقَادُ الْبَرْقِ يَخْتَفُونَ أَبْصَارَهُم. How is the ayah in Surah Baqarah? Astaghfirullah. ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ وَتَرَكَهُمْ. Can someone remind me, please? Okay. Sorry? فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. Right? He leaves them in the darkness, unable to see. He takes the light away. They light a fire, and if you look at the ayah, it's very interesting. They light the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the light from the fire. He doesn't extinguish the flame. He doesn't take the heat away. He takes the light from the fire, yani what it would project to help them see. That flame is the flame of the intellect. They manage to come close enough to understanding a thing. He takes away the light, leaving them in darkness, unable to see. So these are the individuals who are completely dependent on that light. You have to forgive me, I'm still not feeling well, so there are a lot of things that are lapsing from me. Astaghfirullah. وَهَؤُلَاءِ الْأَنْوَارُ لَهُمْ. And as for these others, this other category, al-wasiluna ilay, these ones, the lights now are belonging to them. They have reached the light. These are the bodies, I think I mentioned this last session, previous session. Imam al-Ghazali says in the Mishkat al-Anwar, there are 3 types of bodies or forms. There are those that do not illuminate, that have no luminance themselves, and they do not illuminate others. These are those who are like lifeless objects. Then there are those who, they do not have self-luminance, but they do reflect light off onto others. That's this category of those who are journeying towards. You see, they do not radiate light themselves, but they can be transmitters of light. So somebody who has studied a lot of texts can transmit that text, doesn't really understand it themselves to give proper insight and depth, but can transmit it that it benefits someone else. So the light is just channeling through them. And then the third category are those who are self-illuminating and are illuminating others. These are those whom you would say, that person has nur, he's able to radiate light. Just being in that person's presence is enlightening itself. This is something that Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, when he went, he was one of the last students of Imam al-Ghazali, because after Imam al-Ghazali finished his rihla, his journey of seclusion, he went back and to his hometown. and he was just teaching like very low level. He wasn't taking in any students per se. So Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi was his last student, and Qadi Abu Bakr's teacher was Imam al-Ghazali, is one of Imam al-Ghazali's biggest critiques. When Ibn Arabi went, and he says that when I entered the room and I saw him, it was like the sun was, casting its glare. This, like, I felt so enlightened just being in his presence. That's the kind of person you would say is self-illuminating and is illuminating others. And alhamdulillah, even 800, 900 years later, we are still benefiting from the luminance of such individuals. May Allah grant them paradise. So to them, they belong, to them the lights are with them now. They're in the presence of light. لِأَنَّهُمْ لَهُ لَا لِشَيْءٍ دُونَهُ, because for them there is no thing other than Allah. They are in His presence. They belong to Him and nothing else. قُلِ اللَّهِ, he's citing here from Surah Al-An'am, I believe. قُلِ اللَّهِ, say Allah. Say Allah. This is the only thing that they can relate with in that state. The angels said, when Allah said to them, إِنِّي جَعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, they said, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We're not doing all these other things. The only thing we can do is glorify you with praise and sanctify you. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, سَبِّحْ isma rabbikal a'la. Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High. Glorify the name of your Lord. In the Kimya, he said, Imam al-Ghazali, he said, place yourself in seclusion. Cut off from yourself the senses and all inroads from the externalities. And call out the name of your Lord by your heart, not your tongue. Say Allah, Allah, Allah from your heart. Being in that presence, really feeling that presence. This is what the Quran is directing you. قُلِ اللَّهِ, say Allah. ثُمَّ ذَرْهُمْ, leave these others. فِي خَوْضِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ, leave these others in their arguments and their discourse and their expert opinions, their theories, their all these things, their experiments. Leave them. Let them amuse themselves. Let them keep moving round and round in circles. Because God is not so distanced away that you need all these things to arrive at His understanding. Knowing Allah, what you would call ma'rifah, what Imam al-Ghazali is talking about, ma'rifah, is not something that you read about in a book, a matan or sharh or theological text that will help you arrive at realization of God. There are people who've got university degrees, PhDs in theology, in ilm al-kalam, in aqidah, in all these things. Non-Muslims, secularists, they have PhDs. They can teach those texts better than the products that come out of Darul Ulum. Better than our own Sheikh so-and-so, Maulvi so-and-so, this, that and the other. Better than them. They can teach it better. But that thing in the heart, that light is extinguished. No matter how much you read about the theory of God, it will not take you closer to God. But realization of it from pure fitrah is sufficient to put you in His presence. This is what He's trying to explain to you in all this. Stop trying to arrive at an understanding of God through semantic knowledge. This is only a facilitator. This is just a means to give you a little bit of a boost, to give you a little bit of a push forward. But true realization has to originate from the heart. The point of initiation, you can still study all this, But the point of initiation should come through the divine lens. Stop trying to understand reality through physics and biology and chemistry. Look at what your Lord has said insofar as what revelation He has sent down. Look at what your Lord has said about reality. Understand it through there first. Then you can go out and do all those other things. You see, أهمها عقائد ثم الفروع تصوف وآلة بها شروع. Establish this inner dimension first. Islam, Iman, Ihsan. That's the proper epistemology. That's the hadith of Jibreel. Jibreel came, he came to teach you your way of life, your existence, how you're going to repay your debt that is owed to your Creator for bringing you into existence. He came to teach you your deen. And he taught these 4 items, 4 components. Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and then being in existence, in time. That's the proper epistemology. Once you establish that in here, not the theory of it, not doesn't mean, okay, I've studied all the fiqh books, so now I know about Islam. No, that's not what it means. It means through living it, through embodying it. Once you establish that, your mind has been now set in the proper epistemology. You can now look out into reality and truly see the manifestation of divinity in reality. As Imam Ali said, there is not a thing that I can see that I do not see Allah's amr established in it. Aw kama qaal, something of the sort that he said. There is nothing that I can see in reality that I do not see Allah's manifestation in it. This is how our predecessors, this is how they viewed reality. Let's, what's the time? Okay, let's stop here inshallah, and next week we'll start off from number 32 into a different theme. Proceed with our text. Inshallah, we want to start on the Isaguji. So we finished last week. We finished the Mabadi Ashra, and I will encourage everyone to memorize that text, the Mabadi, the poem itself, versification, because you can apply it to basically anything as a guide, any science, and likewise any theory as well. Any theory you come across, you can put it to the litmus test of these 10 principles and examine it for its validity. إن مبادئ كل فن 10 الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة وفضله ونسبة والواضع والاسم الاستمداد وحكم الشارع مسائل والبعد بالبعد اكتفى ومن دار الجميع حاز الشرف. You just keep those in mind and you can apply them to anything, any theory you come across. So we looked at these 10 principles of logic. What is this? Okay. We looked at the had, the definition of it, and we said that logic has been defined as, there are many definitions to it, but we defined it as the art or the science of reasoning, of polishing articulation, the science that studies the mental operations, our mental operations. We looked at the name, and we looked at how the name mantiq is derived, why mantiq was chosen by the Arabs. In the word logic itself comes from Greek. I don't think I mentioned this. It comes from Greek logos, which means to know or to determine or to deduce. It's basically a probing into reality, which is what the mind does. It probes into reality. If you remember the text we did, again, I'll keep on referring to the previous text of Ghazali's Kimia. He spoke about the senses, and then the senses, we said, are connected to the brain. They bring all the information to the brain, and then that information is readily available for the mind to access. So in this way, the senses are serving the mind, the intellect. So the senses are probing reality. This is what the mind is doing at all times, is probing reality. It's always asking questions and it's trying to interpret that. So that's what the mind is doing. That's its operation. That's the logos. The Arabs called it mantiq because it has got three meanings. Mantiq being the ability to speak, nutq. So in the Arab logicians, they defined the human being. One of the definitions is al-hayawan al-natiq, the speaking animal, which also includes the meaning of the rational animal. So the second meaning is it has the ability to comprehend. And the third meaning is it improves the power of comprehension itself. So it strengthens the ability to speak. Mantiq, logic strengthens the ability to speak. It enables the comprehension to be more accurate and the comprehension of universals, because ultimately that's what our final target is. We are muwahidun. We look for the one in the many. And all these many, our task is to ultimately reach the one absolute, from whom all these many come from. And the third is to perfect or strengthen the power of comprehension itself. We looked at the subject, and the subject we said has got three parts, which is the subject of logic is to study the operations of the mind, which are three: tasawwur, tasdeeq, and qiyas. Grasping or comprehending a thing, just grasping its essence, concluding or ratifying it, and or reasoning it through argumentation or through demonstration. And then we looked at the benefit. What is the thamra? And we said that its benefit, its greatest benefit is that it provides clarity of thought, sound reasoning skills, and the one who is trained in its art form is able to be more effective in their oral and written communication. This mode, psychologically speaking, is what enables you to cultivate an epistemological soundness internally, being able to articulate what it is that is bothering you. Whether it's to articulate to somebody or just simply for you to articulate it to yourself to be able to understand what problem you're dealing with. This is why you find children, before they have started picking up language, they have a difficulty in expressing themselves. And so they're upset when they don't get what they want. They're angry, they throw tantrums, they're confused. They cannot articulate what they want. And so they cannot resolve what it is that is internally causing them conflict. Then we looked at the topics, which was we looked at the entire tree, the tree of all the topics and the categories and where they fall under. We looked at formal logic and material logic. We looked at deductions and inductions. We looked at the modes of argumentation. So we're going to look at all those as we go through the whole text. And then al-istimdad, its source, yastamiddu min ayyi shay'in, where is it deriving its source from? And we say the logic, it does not derive its source from any other science, because it is studying the object itself. It is studying the operation of the mind, the object itself. And then we looked at the founder. Who is the founder? And there are many different arguments as to who the founder is, but the general agreement among many scholars, Muslim and non-Muslim as well, is that Aristotle is really considered the founder of the science of logic. Now, this does not mean that people did not do logic before that. Logic has always been existent from the first human being. And this is also evidential from the Quran when you look at how Adam alayhi salam, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Adam, the things he does, the things he says, you can see that he is doing logic. Then, what did we look at after that? Was the relationship to other sciences. We say that it is essentially related to every science. And in that regard, it is sui generis. It is in its own class, because it's essentially connected to every science, and it is therefore an instrumental science. Min ulum al-ala. It is from among the instrumental sciences or requisite knowledges. And that's what its virtue and rank is in the Islamic sciences. It doesn't have a high rank in terms of that, because you have In the sciences, you've got things like tafsir, hadith, fiqh, usul. These are high ranking sciences. Logic has a lower rank, but it has a higher virtue as well. Though it has a low rank, it has a high virtue because it is essentially a requisite knowledge. It is a primary, preliminary, fundamental knowledge. And then lastly, it was the legal category, the hukm shari, and there are many different opinions on that. Some say it's prohibited, some say it's permissible, some say it is recommended, others say it is obligatory. There is a reconciliation from all of this, and we looked at, okay, what were the prohibitions and why were the prohibitions there, and how were these reconciled and resolved. Once the prohibitions are removed and the science has been sanitized, then it can be studied for its virtue and for its benefit, so long as the rules are observed to not get into the prohibitory aspects of it. So now we'll look at the text, the original text of the Isagoji. I'm going to read the introduction here, which is not part of the Isagoji itself. It's sort of just introducing the text. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال الشيخ الإمام أفضل المتأخرين قدوة الحكماء الراسخين أثير الدين الأبهري طيب الله ثراه وجعل الجنة مثواه. So, he has said, this is the introduction, that the Shaykh Imam Athiruddin al-Abhari, who is one of the best of the later scholars. So you have the early scholars, the first ones who studied with the Salafus Salihin. They took from them. So you have people like Imam Malik and Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, these type of scholars and their teachers. And then you've got the later scholars now, sort of a few generations after that. So his name is Athiruddin al-Abhari, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make pleasant his resting place and establish for him in paradise an eternal abode. So this is what he has said. Nahmadullah ta'ala. Actually, I think in your text it starts with Bismillah. Yes. So it's the same. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. نحمد الله تعالى على توفيقه ونسأله هداية طريقه ونصلي على محمد وإعتراته أجمعين أما بعد. We beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala most high. So in the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious, we beseech him, we praise him for his, I'll read the translation they've given here, that's good. We praise Allah most high for his enablement to help us worship him. Yani that's for the tawfiq that he has given us, and we beseech him in guidance to his path, and we send blessings and salutations upon our liege Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and upon all of his family and all of his companions. Amma ba'd, as for now what follows. So this is you don't see this in modern academics, secular academics. They don't have this tradition. This was basically a standard way of writing as well as delivering speech, like khutbah. They would begin always with praise unto Allah, with salutations unto Rasulullah, unto all the messengers, if they would include that, and then all their companions and their followers, and the righteous who came after them. And then they would distinguish that from now the actual content or the subject by saying, Amma ba'd. As for now, what follows? So to proceed onwards, it's a sort of a segue into it. So he says now, فَهَذِهِ رِسَالَةٌ فِي الْمَنْطِقِ. So this is a risala, it is a treatise in mantiq, or in the science of logic. أوردنا فيها ما يجب استحضارها لمن يبتدئ في شيء من علوم مستعينا بالله مستعينا بالله إنه مفيد الخبير لا إنه مفيد الخير والجود. So this is a text, a treatise in mantiq, in which we have placed all that is essential and necessary for the one who wants to begin their study in the sciences. So we do so by seeking Allah and by seeking Allah's help and aid. Indeed, He is the giver of all that is good, and He is the one who is the gifter of all that is gifted unto mankind. This is the original. Now I want to highlight a couple of things here as just as a sort of a reinforcement. He's saying here, أوردنا فيها ما يجب استحضارها. We have placed in this treatise all that is necessary. So Aristotle's 6 books on logic, these were called the organon. The 6 texts on logic, the organon, he started with the categories and then interpretations, and then prior analytics, posterior analytics, and then topics and sophistical refutations. These were his 6 books. He put them in this format. And then came Porphyry, who wrote a sort of an abridgment of these 6 books into what he called the Isagogy. Then came the Muslims. Athiruddin al-Abhari took the Isagogy and summarized it even further and basically Islamicized it. So he got rid of a lot of non-essentials from that, and then he inserted things that were more Islamic based, you could say. And so you will even see many of the terms are essentially, they are either derived from the Quran or they're derived from the Islamic tradition itself. So this is the Isagogy. He kept the same title because the Muslims didn't plagiarize anyone's work. If they took work from anywhere, they gave it its appropriate title and they acknowledged from whom the author or from whom it came, unlike the West anyway. So he maintained the original title. Now what he's saying here is that in this treatise, the one that he has written, not the original one, he has placed that which he feels is necessary. And necessary here is a technical term that we'll be applying in logic. So whenever you hear the word necessary, know that it is technical in logic. What he feels is necessary for somebody for you to have it readily available. Istihdar is to be ready at hand. So it's right there at your fingertips. It's like a potential in you. So by studying logic, you are equipping yourself with the potential ready to be executed when you then go into the study of another science. It's right there with you. So the next time you open up a book, any random book, if you have logic as a mastery, the moment you start reading that book, things start becoming easy for you to grasp because you're intuitively now able to determine what is the term, what are the words, what are the classifications, how is the argument flowing, what is he saying here, what is he saying there, how do you determine this? It's already there readily for you. You see, it improves the power of comprehension. This is what he's saying. And this is why it was then classified as an instrumental science. For you to study it became almost mandatory. And insofar as ulum now, he says, fi shay'in min al-ulum. Ulum here has a different meaning than what is contemporarily understood as ilm. Contemporarily now, ilm is understood as, is given the translation. It's not really given a meaning anymore. It's just given a translation. So, knowledge. What is ilm? Ilm is knowledge. Or what is alim course? Have you done alim course? Alim course now they're calling it, right? So you do alim course. You send the guy over to Pakistan, India, somewhere, Saudi, something, Medina University, and he does alim course and he comes back. What did you study? I studied Quran and tafsir and hadith and fiqh. That's essentially nutshell for what ilm entails. As far as these scholars were concerned, that is not what ilm entailed. Ulum entailed any science. All sciences were classified as ulum. including your biology and your chemistry and your mathematics and algebra and this, that, and the other. These were all considered ulum. The word itself, in its origination, because English is a recent language, so there was no science at that time. The word science was not there at that time. The word science is derived from the Latin word scientia or scientia, T-I-A at the ending, S-C-I-E-N-T-I-A, scientia. And that in Greek was logos. So that's why you find modern sciences are called logy, something, psychology, physiology, biology, like that. It is the study of, and that's what science is. The science is the study of a thing. So an ilm is a knowing of a thing. The ilm itself is therefore a sort of an enclosure in which everything about the thing that is studied, all the rules, all the properties, all the terms, everything is enclosed in there, is properly organized and categorized and then defined within those parameters. That's what a science is. Everything about that is properly organized. So it helps you facilitate. It facilitates for you an understanding of the object. Instead of you looking here and there for information and trying to understand and put pieces together, the science has basically been put together to help facilitate the understanding of it. That's the capacity in which he is referring to as ulum, as ilm here. Okay. So, now let me see if I'm going to be able to start the text, because I wanted to just give a brief overview of the text first. The text itself, remember, mantiq we are doing is studying the three operations of the mind. So the text itself is organized in that way. The first portion, when you look at, and I'll be following the text that I've given you more, you've got here ad-dalal, dalal al-lafziya. It starts with the word, the spoken word. And then he's got the 5 universals in there, and we'll be looking at those 5 universals. And then we'll be looking at what's called the definitions, or the definition, how to build a definition, qawlu sharih. That category, those 3 topics are going to be the first operation of the mind, tasawwur. We are looking at the whatness of a thing. So we're looking at what is the object. Let me use this glass as an example. What is this object? What is its name? The word associated with the object, and then what is its definition. Using those 3, you have now an understanding of its whatness, what's called the quiddity. Okay, what is it? Mahiyatun. That's the first portion of the operation of the mind. The second portion begins with propositions, and these are called mabadi at-tasdiq. The initiation, the first portion of tasdeeq. So you have propositions. It starts with a proposal. You have the name. You know, have the object, you gave it the definition. Okay, so you know what it is. Then you give a proposition. This is empty. That's a proposition. If I say this is empty, that's a proposition. I am giving an affirmative. Or if I say this is not full, I'm giving a negative proposition. Or if I say this is blue, although the statement is false, it's still a proposition. If I say this is transparent, the statement is true and it is a proposition. That's a proposition. A proposition is just a statement. What you just say about a thing. The proposition is the mabadi. It is the initial point of tasdeeq. It is what starts off the process to arrive at what's called maqasid at-tasdeeq. The maqsad, the end conclusion of it. So you will have the proposition, and then you will have the contradiction to that. So we have propositions, and then we'll cover contradictions. And then after contradictions, we will cover the conversions. Those three components constitute the portion of tasdeeq, the second operation of the mind, arriving at a final true conclusion of a thing, depending on what proposition has been given. Then we have the third operation of the mind, and that is called qiyas, building a syllogism, the argumentation itself, the reasoning. And there are many aspects of that. It is probably going to be the longest topic that we'll cover in this, because that's where everything then culminates to. And then finally, we're going to have the 5 skills, and that's also part of the qiyas. So this has got 2 portions, the qiyas itself and then the 5 skills of argumentation, the sina'at al-khamsa. These have got things like burhan, presenting absolute proof, or jadal, which is like a disputation, or khataba, oration, articulating the argument, or shi'r, which is poetic, provoking a sort of reaction that either makes the other person open up to your argument, or reject it, or have some sort of reaction to that. And then the last would be the logical fallacies, the mughalata, because it's still part of logic. A fallacy is part of logic. It's just incorrect logic. So we'll look at the fallacies as well. Those are essentially the 3 parts of the text, and we're looking at the 3 functions of the mind. So remember, we started with the comprehension, and now we're looking at the extensions of each one. And then we go into the next set of extensions, and then the next set of extensions and particulars. That's our process. So I don't know if I will have time. Maybe I will have time. Can I take an additional maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes? I can maybe do this, the first statement here. So dalala lafziya wud'iyya. He says in the first statement, there is a statement that is missing in your text. So, but that's okay. I'll just explain it. Okay. So he says, al-lafdhu dalu bil-wad'i yadullu ala tamami ma wudi'a lahu bil-mutabaqa wa ala juz'ihi bil-tadammuni in kana lahu juz'un wa ala ma yulazimuhu fi dhihni bil-iltizam. The uttered word, the lafz, the uttered word, the spoken word, that signifies a meaning. It is what signifies. The word signifies a meaning. The word is not the thing itself. The word is signifying something. So if I say cat, that word cat is not the cat itself. It is a word that is signifying that object. I could call that something else if there was an official word for that. I could say feline and it would still mean the same thing. The word is signifying. It doesn't signify itself. So, it signifies by formulation. Bil wad'i, by formulation, by the form that indicates its entire meaning. He's saying here by complete accord. You could also call that by conformity with reality, right? Mutabaqa. I spoke about this in the earliest first to second session. Bil mutabaqa, with reality itself. If I hold this object and I say dog, that doesn't conform with reality. The word and what it signifies does not conform with what I am indicating in reality. You see? If I say glass, then the word glass conforms with the reality. It has to be bil mutabaqa. Because the first rule, remember the 3 rules we did last week? The first rule, a thing is what it is. So if I call it something else, does not automatically make it that thing. It still is what it is. So as a whole, by formulation, it refers to it by mutabaqa, by its conformity. وعلى جزئه بالتضمن إن كان له جزء. And in part of its signification by inclusion. تضمن, it's included in the word. So if I say pages, or if I say paper, paper is included in there. If I intended to say read the passage for me, if I say read the passage for me or something of the sort, the passage is included in the book. So if I call this a passage, okay, that doesn't really match much in that. If I call this a story, if this was a storybook, for example, if I point to it and say, can you read the story for me? Although what I'm pointing at is a physical book, but what is part of it is included in that meaning that I'm sort of indicating. So though I'm pointing to the book and it's called a book, I'm pointing to it and saying, can you read the story for me? Although I'm saying the story is included in the object of it. Bitadammun, it is part of it, of its composition. That's what he's referring to. If it has a part. So وَعَلَى جُزْئِهِ بِتَضَمُّنِ إِنْ كَانَ لَهُ جُزْءٌ. If it has got a part, then you can use its part to refer to it. You see, so I can say something like, anyway, well, we'll come to the actual terms themselves. It will make more sense. So وعلى ما يلازمه في الذهن بالالتزام, and by what accompanies it in the mind by concomitance, by what it is bound to, by association. So if you remember, we said that on this one side you have got the object, on this other side you have the meaning of what that object means, its essence, and then in the middle there you've got the symbol. And that realm, that domain in the middle there is the domain of the aql, because that's what the aql does. It receives information, okay? It associates the object's information, its roundness and its shape and its size and all those things. We'll look at the 10 categories, the place, the time, the color, the accident, and all these things. We'll look at that. It takes all that information and then associates that information to the symbol, and then associates the meaning of all that to the symbol as well. So it does this through association, right? So the form in the mind associates the word that we are using to the object, and that word to its meaning, the symbol. The word is the symbol in between. So the word is associated to the object and the word is associated to the meaning. And so if I remove this object from your point of view, from your perspective, it's no longer in your presence, and the meaning itself, you cannot physically see it. But if I use the word, I say glass of water, there is a form that is created in your mind, and you can see, you can picture the glass of water. That's its conformity. That's what he's talking about. So there are three parts to it. There are three aspects to it. There is what the word refers to the object in its wholeness, or in its part if it has got parts, because some objects are whole by themselves, they don't have parts, or by its conformity in the mind. That's what the word is referring to. Now, what is this exactly? What is happening in this case? Okay, I'll just finish up with this, then we'll start with the vocables. This is the ability that mankind, that Adam has been given. The human being has been given this ability. This is what we're doing as human beings, that no other creature can do this. It is the abstraction of the essence of a thing from the thing in conformity with understanding what the thing is, by using the name or the word, the symbol that is associated with the thing. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said unto the angels, I'm going to place this Khalifa on the earth, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. Are you going to place this creature in this domain whose nature is concupiscent and irascible? That's the nature of this domain. It is a domain whereby it's consumption and it is conflict and it is turbulence. And you cannot have intellection in a state of turbulence. You see, intelligence and forbearance and dreams have got the same word. A halim is one who dreams. Hilm is intelligence, and hilm can also mean patience. Now all those three are related to a state of tranquility, because you can't dream, you can't sleep, you can't dream if there's noise around you, if there's turbulence around you. At the same time, you can't think when there's all this nonsense going on around you. You can't have patience when there is all this upheaval taking place around you. You see, you need that quietude. You need to just calm. This is why you close your eyes when you are trying to think, or you try to go to a quiet place when you're trying to think, because you want to eliminate the outside world and create this isolation within you. This is taking place in the innermost of the human being. It is not taking place in the external aspect of this world. It's taking place on the innermost. And this is what the angels were referring to. In this domain, it is difficult for an individual to attain intellection while they are in this domain. Because how are they then going to glorify you? Everything that you create glorifies you. Why would you place a Khalifa? Now, they're not asking, what does Khalifa mean? A Khalifa is an intelligent creature. A Khalifa, inherent in the meaning of the word, is the concept of intelligence, because to be a Khalifa is to be responsible and accountable. And in order for you to be responsible and accountable, you have to be cognizant. You have to be aware of your actions. So a lion, though a lion is considered the king of the jungle, is not a Khalifa in that sense, because the lion is not cognizant of his own actions. He's not held accountable for it. He's not brought to ask, why did you kill the gazelle? Don't you know that he's got a mother and a father? Don't you know he has his own family? Why did you do like the lion is not held to account for that. See, in human structures, killing another human being is a sin, is murder. Why is it also not illegal for the lion to kill another animal? Because the lion, even though is considered, the king of the jungle, is not intelligent. So cannot be regarded as a Khalifa in that sense. A Khalifa is that who is one who is intelligent, has got intelligence, and intelligence demands that it is cognizant of the one who created everything, the originator of intelligence itself. When he created the lawh and the qalam, and then instructed the qalam to write, that instruction has to be comprehended. It has to be understood, so that the qalam can carry out the instruction and do the writing, and the lawh, the tablet, can comprehend the instruction and receive the writing. So right there in itself, you are seeing the base foundation of intelligence to comprehend the amr and to execute the amr. So the angels are now asking and saying, why would you send someone in that domain, an intelligent being in that domain where it would get corrupted, where it would end up in conflict and bloodshed, while we are in a state of glorification. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know what you don't know. There is something here you have overlooked, or rather, you have no knowledge of whatsoever, because this is something that is novel. It's new. It has never been done before. In the hadith, you will see, it's in Sahih Bukhari, I think. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Allah has created Adam in his own image, fi suratihi, ala suratihi. What that means is the image, the concept, the raw concept, not the image like what you see in the mirror, no. The imago, the concept is an original concept. It's not derived from anywhere. It's not a replication of something else. It is unique. You see, the beauty of an original is in the originality of its beauty. The beauty of an original is in its originality of its the beauty of an original is in the originality of its beauty. Astaghfirullah. To see, when you look at the human being, there is a beauty to the human being that is unique from the rest of creation, both in the external aspect of the human being and the internal conduct of the human being. And that makes it a unique creation. This is what they are being told. Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. You cannot make a comparative of this creature to any other creature, because there is something unique about this creature. Then he says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. He imprinted into Adam all the names, all of them. Some of the scholars say that these are the universal names, like the universal concept, the universal tree, the universal plate, because universalities don't exist in this outward world. There are no universals in this outward world. Each thing is a particulate. Universals are of the noumenal world, of the world of Amr, where now the thought to universalize, if I look at one, each of these is a particular. Each of these objects is a particular, but I can abstract the universals from all of these objects, from both of these objects. These are both different. They're not the same from their size, from their weight, from every aspect, every property of them, but I can abstract the universality of them and say that these are books, that there is a universal concept that I know is called a book. These are the names that were given to Adam. The concept, being able to identify it, what it is. To identify what it is. And then he placed these, and then he brought some objects in front of the angels and asked them, inform me if you are truthful. In kuntum sadiqeen. Tell me, abstract from these their understanding, their realities. قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. Glory unto you. We don't have this knowledge. We cannot do this. Then Adam was told, inform them. And then he informed them. And then he said, ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون. Did I not say to you? And now he inserts something unique here. إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون. I know what is the unseen of the heavens and the earth. The unseen, because this, what is happening here, is unseen. It is not, there is no physical connection between the intellect, the heart, and the physical object. There is no physical connection between the two. There is no direct link between the two. The two are of completely different dimensions that are separated by a breach. And yet, despite that, we still are able to draw out the essence of the thing and comprehend it and understand it. This is the ability that the human being has been given. the ability which we then, when you extrapolate this ability, from this ability comes the ability to use language. The construct of language itself is a construct of words and symbols. That's the name. Each thing has a name. If it's a verb like sitting, the action has a name. It's called sitting. If it was done in the past tense, it has a name. He sat down. You see, that's a name. Each thing has a name. This is what we have, the concept itself, the universal concept, using which we can apply our intelligence to universalize to the ultimate unity, to then rise to that rank. See, from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. This is why it's very astounding to hear of an atheist who says, I don't believe in God. It's completely astounding. It's just the scholars considered an atheist to be a fool, regardless of how smart his arguments might be. These were considered ahmaq, foolish people. You see, evolutionists, for example. Evolutionists are hard pressed to explain these concepts. Really, to explain the concept of the pen, for example. The concept of the pen. Why is it long and thin like this? Why does it have a tip here? Why is the writing done in these straight lines, whether it goes this way or this way or this way or this way? Why is it done in those straight lines? What's the concept there? How do you explain that from evolution? Oh, random, something happened here and a stone fell from there and some guy over there and the guy who was here. And then, they have got no way of explaining that concept. How is it that we're able to do this? How are we able to form these words? Where does this come from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram alladhi allama bil qalam. You see, read in the name of your Lord who has taught using the pen. That concept does not come from some monkey who decided to jump from one tree to another and then the stone fell on his head and suddenly, it doesn't come from all this nonsensical stuff. You see, what I'm trying to arrive at is you really need to appreciate this part of the human being. This thing, this is your power. Like, this is your strength. This is your core power. You see, Superman can fly and can shoot laser beams. You are not Superman. This is your power. You are Adam man. You see, you are Adami. You are Banu Adam. You have the most unique gift, the most unique ability in all of creation. There is no other being that has this power. This strength, it is so unique to you. Don't waste it, is the point I'm trying to arrive at. Don't waste this power. This is your ability. Really expand on it. Use it well. So this is what the lafz is now. This is the word now. This is what we are analyzing in language, in logic. There is a footnote here, I think. Let me read the footnote that they have there. I think 5 more minutes and we can be done. Let me just go through this footnote. So he says on the footnote here, signification, which is dalala. You see, dalil, you want to give dalil. Dalil is that which signifies. It gives you the proof of a thing. So the signification, there are 3 types of significations. Solely logical signification, which is aqaliya. It is purely logical. It is purely from the mind. The second is natural, which is tabi'iyya. It can also be addiya. Tabi'iyya is from nature. What is from the very nature of a thing. And the third is wada'iyya or wud'iyya, from the formulation of it. Each of these types can be verbal or non-verbal, can be uttered, actually uttered, or just signified by some other means. The first type of signification refers to something signifying something else based on logic alone. So you're coming up with, let's say, a statement to demonstrate something in reality based purely on logic. It's purely logic. There's no physical proof or evidence for it. Non-verbal examples of this include movement by volition signifying life, the movement of a hand signifying movement of a ring on its finger. So if I do this, like for example, like ladies like doing this when they get engaged, right? Because they have the ring. So they start doing this. So movement of the hand, that's non-verbal. It is signifying what's on the ring finger. I'm trying to make a statement here. That is non-verbal, but it's purely logical. Or movement of a ship in the sea signifying movement of its passengers based on its movement. So you see a ship out at sea and it's moving, and then you say, oh, look, those passengers are going on a cruise. Well, the passengers are just on the ship. The thing that's actually moving is the ship. So that's signifying something else. A verbal example is a word indicating the person who said it. It should be who said it, not that said it. Yeah, it should be who said it. A verbal example is a word indicating the person who said it, because that's the subject of it. Anyway. Or the fact that he's alive. So if somebody says something like, if let's say, you stand up and say, Assalamu alaikum. By you saying Assalamu alaikum, I can infer that you are alive, because you're speaking. The second type of signification is not logical, but is based on the natural order of things in creation, as Allah Most High determines the creation to be, and is hence known empirically instead of logically. So, for example, if it rains, then the plants will grow, right? That's the natural order of things. Doesn't require you to have any logical syllogism built on that to determine that. It's the natural order of things. If the clouds become dark, it's going to rain. That's the way the world works. Non-verbal examples include medical signs and symptoms in a body, such as fever, vomiting, or diarrhea to signify physical illness, a reddish complexion of one's face signifying shyness, or heavy rain signifying a fertile season. So those are non-verbal examples of that. So if somebody starts coughing like I'm coughing right now, you can deduce from that he's sick without me having to say that I'm sick. Just by that natural symptom, you can deduce from that the person is sick. A verbal example is the word ouch, signifying the feeling of pain. So if I actually say that, ouch, or so you determine from that utterance that there is pain taking place. So if this, then that is what you're applying in this case. The third type of signification, that by formulation. Now, listen to this. This is the main portion now. The third type of signification, that by formulation, is based on how people have formulated or laid out things or concepts. Non-verbal examples are meanings signified by traffic lights or traffic signs, such as a red light to signify stop or a green light to signify go. So this is not the natural state of what we're looking at. This is what we have come up with. So you're driving and there is a sign there. That sign has been put there by us. It is not natural and it is not purely logical. It is physical. You can see the physical evidence of it, but it is not natural. It is done by human beings, or it is deliberate. So it's got a signification that has been arbitrarily been established. So you see the sign and you have to obey what the sign says because it has been arbitrarily established to mean something. Or school bell signifying class times, or nodding one's head to signify agreement. This nodding of the head, right? I agree, or this, I don't agree. Or you could do the Indian one, which could mean either or, right? I don't know how that one came up. Again, You should ask the evolutionists how that came out. How did we start nodding? Like, where did that come from? If they could provide you with an evolutionary theory that explains where the concept of doing this is universally agreed upon to mean an affirmation, and this means a negation. Where does that come from? If they are so strongly adherent to the fact that, we just came from nothing, just a bunch of random cells getting together, having a party. If that's the case, how did this come around? Verbal signification by formulation deals with language, words laid out by humans or the divine to signify meanings, and is the only type of signification that is dealt with in this science of logic. Hence, the present text that we have, begins with a discussion of the lafz, the spoken or the uttered word, and its three subtypes, as they have been outlined before. The word and its signification as a whole, in part, or in concept. The word that signifies the entire object, physical object, part of the object, or the concept in the mind. That's what the science of logic is dealing with. Though we can apply logic to determine things in the natural world, or we can apply things to concepts that do not have a natural setting. Like unicorns, you can make an argument about unicorns. They don't physically exist, but you can make that argument. You can provide some sort of definition or description. You can say does this or does that, whatever, right? It's fictional. It's in the mind. It's not in the natural world, but you can make an argument for it. But the entirety of all that is dealing with language alone. The spoken word, the uttered word. So we're analyzing language. Logic is now the analysis of language in what things are, the word that signifies the object and what it means, how to define it, how to articulate it, so that this communication that is taking place externally with others and internally with yourself can be pure, can be sound, can be accurate, and can be comprehensible. So, alhamdulillah, I think we will end here. Yes, we will end here, inshallah. And next week, we shall start with... Oh, wait, there's one more portion, actually. There is a section here. That's an example that I've put here as an example. So I'll do that next week, inshallah. So we'll leave it at that. The Arabic is not there in the text that you have, so I'll start with that and explain that from next week, inshallah. And then we'll start on the 5 universals. So let's end here. I want to take a break and take some medicine, and it will be Maghrib time for me in a short while, and then we will convene after that. So Jazakumullah khairan. Alhamdulillah. Can we start? Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's start, inshallah.
Ziba, you may unmute yourself and ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum Ustad.
Alaikum salam.
So, basically my question, to be honest, I thought that it's a bit like it reflects a bit of my stupidity, so I was a bit scared about asking this question, but so I'll try my best to explain. You said that on one side you've got the object or the word, and then on the other side there's the meaning or the essence of it. And then in the middle there's the symbol, which is like the domain of God, and it's it's basically minor logic, like shape, size, place, time, color, position, and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, I just had a question about language and written language. I don't know. So in the middle there's a symbol. So I'm just wondering, people, languages when they're written, is it I'm sorry, I don't know if it's it. You in your mind, the akal, it constructs it images, it forms an image of the word or object or part of it, uh, conformity in the mind. So so like languages, the way they're written, like how do you know, like, say a character in Chinese, why is it written like that, and how and why, and is it related to the mind forming a symbol because of the meaning? I'm sorry, I don't know how to explain it, but even Arabic, like a alif, why is it alif like alif, or bar like a bar, and why is it written like curved, and why is there a dot and stuff?
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
there
that's
there
the
are
thing.
there are many of these languages. Many of the ancient languages have got a direct relation to a certain object in reality, to which that object is, to which that symbol is drafted towards. In the Arabic language, it is drafted more in representation of the sound that it makes. So, uh, so like the alif, for example, in reality there is no alif in the ancient script. The alif was sort of introduced at a much later stage, but the original was the hamza, the hamza, and you've got hamza. The hamza is written like that because it's sort of the initial point of articulation. Arabic language is based on points of articulation where the word or the sound is uttered from. So you've got the sound, which is right there, sound, right? The hamza. If you look at the ayn, for example, in this case, the ayn is an extension of the hamza. It's the same letter and it's from the same point of articulation, but that elongated curve at the bottom is signifying a deeper articulation of that sound, being that sound. So it's still from the same region, but it's giving that deeper sound to it. Arabic is constructed in that way, but the characters that you're seeing today are not the same characters that were used in those ancient writing systems. The written form of the language is just a writing system, and it can be written in any which way. The prime source or derivation of it is in how the language is articulated. So if you look at Egyptian hieroglyphs, for example, you could have the symbol of a bird, and that can mean a whole number of things by itself. It all depends on how that symbol is used in the context of what's being written. And the same applies to any other language. Chinese characters have got a sort of relation to actual symbology, a symbol. So I don't have a board to show you this, but you can do a Google search on this to determine, to see how Chinese characters are formed. Certain words, certain symbols are written in such a way, like one would represent the roof of a house, the other one might represent, let's say, a man standing, and these are sort of combined together to provide a certain meaning behind that, to say that the man was inside the house or something like that. These ancient languages are based on that. The Latin script that we're using in English now is called the Latin script, but its derivation comes from Indo-European origins, such as Greek. The Greek alpha, beta. So you've got alpha, beta, gamma, delta, like that. That's where the word alphabet itself comes from. It's not an arbitrary formation by itself. It's not made up in that sense. There is some deep metaphysical relation to it, if you can trace it back to its origin. This is why the Quran reminds you, with every recitation, there's a reminder that comes when you recite Alif, Lam, Mim. And every scholar, every mufassir says about that, Wallahu a'lam bima'na. Only Allah knows the meaning of this. The many scholars who have tried to determine what is the meaning, maybe it means Alif means this and Lam means that, like that. Some have come up with some phantasmical interpretations. Alif means Allah, Lam means Jibreel, Mim means Muhammad. or alif is standing in salah, and then lam is like ruku or something, and then mim is sajda or something like that. But none of those meanings are what it actually means, and what it actually means we don't know, because language itself is not a human construct. Language itself goes down to metaphysical roots. The sound, the phoneme, the utterance itself, the sound, and it has its own meaning that we don't know. We really don't know what it means. Animals make their own sounds, birds make their own sounds, and it's truly remarkable. The bird can make, I believe, about 17 different sounds or 20 different sounds. Chimpanzees, like monkeys, can make, I think, maybe 5 or 6 different sounds. Which again, now I don't know why the evolution theory keeps coming back up again, but if you look at the closest in relation in this case, it's not even the chimpanzee, it's the bird, because they have a greater range of sounds that they can make. And each of those sounds has a meaning. And so Dawood alayhi salam, Sulaiman alayhi salam, you see, they were taught mantiq at-tayr. It doesn't say lughat at-tayr, the language. You see, you look at the interpretations or the translations that are provided, they say, oh, they were taught the language of the birds. They were not taught the language of the birds. They were taught how the birds were articulated. What do those sounds mean when the birds are making them? And the combinations of those sounds, what do those mean? That's what they were taught. They were given the ability to discern that, so they could make sense of what the birds were saying. The human being can make about 100 sounds, and it's from those sounds that you get the combinations that we are using. So the a, the b, k, s, d, m, l, all those are phonemes. Those are the different sounds, and the combination of those sounds are what we then compile into words that we then give meanings to those words. And those words have got metaphysical anchors. In English, it's very difficult to determine that. But in Arabic, you can determine that. Like if I say kalama, for example, kalama, you have the ka, the la, and the ma. Kalama means to speak, or he spoke, right? He said something, kalama. If you look at the ka, the la, and the ma, the ka has an articulation point at the back of the throat, ka. And then the la has the articulation in the middle of the space where the tongue meets the upper jaw. Is it called the palate or what? The middle point there, the la. And then the ma is at the lips. The lips come together and then they part for the sound to come out. So ka, la, and ma, literally, it signifies the meaning of speaking is that the speech comes from there, from the back of the throat, and then it enters into the mouth, and then it is articulated through the lips. That is kalama. That's why it is he spoke. You see? So you can do this in the Arabic language. You can do this with other languages also. There are deep-rooted meanings to those words because these are what you call aboriginal languages. They were not formulated in some university or college or some committee of language. This is people who are, embedded with reality, and their language was derived from the reality in which they were in. And the litmus test for these languages is typically with the way they articulate concepts such as time and space. I don't have the time to go into all that, so inshallah. Another time I would probably explain more about language in its nature. No. Anyone else?
Shakila, you may unmute yourself and ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Few questions I have little. The first, you mentioned the name of the last student of Imam Ghazali called Qazi Abu Bakr, and then what? It was some.
Oh, Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you mentioned about the sixth organon of the Aristotle, and you named them like this. It's called, the first one was the categories.
Yeah.
And then I missed second, third, and sixth. So
So
do you think,
there is the categories, interpretations, or definitions. So there's categories, then there is definitions or interpretations. Then there is prior analytics, posterior analytics, and then topics and sophistical refutations.
thank you. And one more question. Although I know that it's not the right time to ask this question, but there is a need for that, so that's why I'm asking. And the question is like, how, like, after doing this, like, if we have done this course, to polish this logic tool or to use that in our, like, in reading or in normal life or in communication, what would be the next book or what would be the next thing to do in order to polish this tool?
There's no book, I would say, after that. It's just application. In your day-to-day activities, now that you know that a certain thing is, we'll look at the genus of a thing, a species of a thing, we'll look at all these categories and everything. It's just observation and identification. You see, it's like the student who studied the whole text and then the teacher told him, go to the market. He goes, he comes back. What did you see? Nothing really. This was happening, that was happening. Says, you haven't got it yet. Teaches him the whole text again, sends him to the market, comes back. Nothing happened. Says, you haven't understood. Teaches him another whole round, the whole thing, everything. Sends him to the market. Then he suddenly comes back and says, Ustad, everyone is doing logic. Yeah, and then he tells him, now you get it. So it's just observation. You just see observation, you'll be able to see. For example, you'll go around the house and you'll see, oh, okay, this object, probe an inquiry. Try to figure out, is it a genus? Which category does it fall under? What are its properties? Would you make an argument out of this? Or you read something in the newspaper or something, just analyze it. And use what you have acquired to figure it out. And as you do it, the more you do it, you'll become intuitive in it. Ultimately, you won't need to know the terms and all those. You'll just be applying logic in a refined state, in an intuitive state. Yeah.
And this is one more question. It's like, where do you buy these Arabic books when you need, this Isaboji in Arabic? So if you want to buy, where do you buy normally these books?
Where do I personally buy, or you're asking like where?
You personally buy, because there are many websites. So
I bought my books from here in Turkey, in Istanbul.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's like in person. You buy.
Yeah, yes. I went in person to a store and I bought them. I'm like that. I'm particular. There are many websites you can find that will sell books online, but I'm very particular. Like, I want to see exactly what the text is inside, and I want to verify a few things. So I do it in person. My wife was frustrated. I took her around for one whole week all around Istanbul looking at bookstores.
Yeah, that is good. Okay, and my last question, it was not a question before, but Sister Zeba asked you about this, the meanings behind these symbols and these things. So there are books that I saw. One is called like Huruful Ma'ani, and there is another book, it's called Kitabul Isra'il Faruf, like the, what is called Isra, is the secrets of the letters.
Secrets, yeah.
So is there something that the alphabet comes from, or?
No, those are books. I believe they are written more from the what's known as Ilmul Huruf, the science of symbols, which I am not a fan of that, because the concept behind it, the premise behind it is that symbols have power, and if you sort of unlock that power, then you'll be able to harness that power. It's all based on this kind of idea that it's very close, and it teeters very close to sorcery, in my view. So I don't like getting involved in that. Even these type of things that people do, the abjad thing, they start doing calculations, and alif means 10, and that one means, it doesn't mean 10, it means 1. But they do the calculation, then they look at Bismillah and they do the mathematics and they get the number 786 and then they plaster 786 everywhere because that it goes into that sort of thing. So I don't like getting involved in that. Symbols do have power. I'm not saying that they don't. They do have power. And the power of symbols comes from the meanings that are given to those symbols. You see, so you could take the triangle, for example. There's nothing wrong with the triangle. It's a shape in reality. Now, that same triangle can be given a meaning that is related to witchcraft, like Freemasonry gives, or the triangle with the eye in it that is related to all this Freemasonry and Illuminati and stuff. They give it a power. They give it a meaning, and then that meaning shapes their perspective of reality. That's the power that I'm referring to. It has a power that can change the perception of the human being and can put the human being in a certain spiritual state. So the same applies to the Quran, for example. If every symbol in the Quran, every ayah has a power, but that power is not, we're not talking about power in the same meaning as, superpowers. Like you can make a spell and then shoot fire from your hands or something like that. We're talking about power in terms of meaning because it's meaning that changes the reality, the inner reality. In the early meanings of the word Araba, in the Arabic language, the word Araba, one of its first meanings was not Arab. That was a later meaning. Its initial meaning was language. Araba meant language. So Araba yu'arribu. The Araba is language. If you look at the word Araba and you switch the word the ba and the ra, you get the word abara. Now abara means to cross over, to cross from one to another. So a ma'bara is a crossing point. A point of crossing, like a bridge, for example, is a crossing point that takes you from one side to the other side. And then you switch the words, the letters around, you get bara'a. Bara'a, one of its meanings is like to have a sort of a glow or a sort of intellection, an excellence, a brilliance, to have excellence. So the Arabs believed that language had the power to change, to cross an individual from one state into another state. And if it was properly used, it could bring out excellence in the individual. So you could use language to take an individual from a negative hal into a positive hal, a positive state. I can use good words and cross you over. If you're feeling depressed, I can use good words, or I can use words and tell you a joke, for example. And then you start laughing, and then suddenly you're out of your depressed state, hal, into a happy state. So words have that power. There was a Hakim in India who was well known to treat people with ruqya and Quran recitation and all that, especially people who are suffering from jinn possession and sorcery and these type of things. So there's a psychologist from the West went there to sort of do a research on that. He wanted to disprove that because people were giving testimony that this person is healing just by reciting from the scriptures. So he went and he observed that and he said, this is all a hoax. How can words have the power to heal or change a person's state from being ill into a sound state? So the Hakim called him a donkey, and the guy started getting angry. And then he called him a dog, and he got really angry. Then he called him a pig, and he was fuming. He wanted to hit the guy. So the Hakim then told him, how can you say that words don't have the power to change a state? 3 words I threw at you and you're ready to kill me. So it can go the other way as well. It can change you from a positive state to a negative state. If you look at music, modern music is particularly designed to take individuals from a spiritual state or a state of intellection into a state of concupiscence and irascibility. So when you look at people who are in a club or a disco, they're at a concert, you observe how they behave. They're behaving like animals. They dress like animals, they behave like animals. Why? The music itself, the sound that is coming from it, the reverberation, and then the words that are used in those quote unquote songs, they have a negative impact. They take the individual from a positive state and put them in a negative state. That same person, if they go into a masjid and listen to Quran recitation in that environment, and those acoustics and those resonations can take them from a negative state into a positive state. So that's the power that symbols have. This is what you have to understand. When you look at these type of books that are written, they're written from this science called Ilm al-Huruf. These are trying to establish the idea that symbols have a power that can give you sort of abilities. You know, you can fly, or you can bring wealth into your house, or you can get married, or you can attract the other person, or these type of things. It's really sorcery. The real power of symbols is to do with the psychological state and how it can change you from state to state. Very long answer, but I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, I got it. It's like it's a diversion actually.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair.
No.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
But I have a question related to geometry and triangle shape. Because I noticed some many times ago, but I never was in deep research about it. Is when someone pray and put his feet in traditional way, one feet in horizontal and the other one in the vertical, it's a symbol of a corner, something like a corner or a triangle. Okay. And when you have a square and you put something like Hajar Aswad, the black stone, and his point, I think you are trying to it's the same symbol.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last
I
bit.
think it's not coincidence that this something like a corner made by our feet when we are sitting and pray, and the fact that the black stone is in the angle of the square that resembles something like geometrically resembles something like a triangle.
I'm not getting like
You're not
what's
you're not
your
getting-
what's your
Okay,
what's the
I'm just pointing that we have two the same form, like the top of triangle, made by your feet when we are in prayer, and the Kaaba itself. When you put the stone in a corner of the Kaaba, you point out something like two lines, like a top of a triangle. I'm just point that this fact I think is not coincidence, because why we put our feet in that way, for example, it's something that anyone know.
No, it's got nothing to do with that. It's how you sit. It's called the posture of tahiyat. There is no other way to sit as far as that is concerned. It's the only way you can sit that is decent or respectable. A posture of tashrif.
No, I'm not.
So if you put your feet in any other way, when you're sitting in that position, you put your feet in any other way, it is not considered to be respectful. It's disrespectful. The only way you can sit is by putting your feet in that position. It's got no correlation to that to the corner of the Kaaba. You have to be careful when you're examining symbols, because two symbols may look alike does not mean that they are correlated. Or one being the cause to the other, or the effect of the other.
This is what I'm asking.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that the two are correlated. In the same way that when somebody looks at Alif Lam Mim and sees the Alif there, and then looks at somebody praying over there and sees them standing there and says, I think this is what that means because they look the same. No, just because they look the same doesn't mean they are related in any way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll look at this inshallah when we come to. We'll do this probably next week only if I'm able to get started on the 5 predicables and the 10 categories, because it's these that will help you organize the concept that you're trying to figure out. Like you're seeing something happening there and you see something similar happening there. They look similar, but they are particular and they're different. So how do you identify the difference between them? Right? So we'll do that inshallah next week, hopefully, when we start on the 5 predicables.
Inshallah.
No.
Jazakallah.
No. Roshan.
Jazakallah khairan. You may ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum, Ustad.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Question about Freemasonry. They have a lot of symbolism in their rites and ritual that they do. Now those symbols that they use, I guess, to communicate in their group. Is there any logic in that?
There is a logic in that, yes. They have their own. The logic will work within any framework as long as it's part of this world. Will work in any framework. Even if you take a fictional book, for example, if you take a book like Harry Potter, for example, all right? There are a lot of things when you subject true reality to that, the logic breaks down. But when you examine it within its framework, the logic seems to make sense. So within every framework, the logic will always work. What it's reliant on is the assumption upon which the logic is built and the mutabaqa, conformity with reality, that will determine its truth or falsehood. So even insofar as like Freemasonry, Illuminati is concerned, they've got their symbols. Those symbols are within the framework, they are logically sound, I would say. They have got significations within their own framework that means something. Now, whether it's truth or falsehood insofar as reality is concerned, that can be proven or disproven. There are a lot of things that you will find that are false with regards to those type of things. But it is symbolic, so it is all based on what they say it means, because they are the ones who are giving the symbol its meaning. If you go to Giza, for example, and you see the pyramid there, doesn't necessarily mean that that pyramid is related to the Dajjal, just because there is a pyramid on the $1 bill with the one eye at the top of it, that is signifying the Antichrist. So within their framework, that's the symbol they've given it. But the pyramid that is there in Giza does not mean that it is the same thing. It's just insofar as signification, what meaning they are giving their symbol determines the validity of it. And so the logic can be built out of that. So the logic of that symbol, for example, could be argued and said, okay, they've got this pyramid on the doorbell. If you look at it, it's got 13 levels. They have got 13 hierarchies insofar as their rank and degree is concerned. Then the top piece is detached from the bottom piece. And the bottom piece is 3-dimensional, the top piece is 2-dimensional or 1-dimensional. That signifies something else. There is the one eye symbol on there. And that signifies one-dimensionality. They know these things. It's not that they are alienated from the Antichrist and his reality. It's not something that only the Prophet ﷺ prophesied about. He said in the hadith, every prophet warned his people about the one-eyed impostor. So that knowledge is known to every civilization. And Freemasonry, the Illuminati, they have their fingers dug into many of these histories. So their symbolism is derived from many of these Greek mythologies and Egyptian mythologies, the Norse mythologies. So it's what meaning they give the symbol, what does it mean to them? insofar as their agenda and the justification of those agendas are concerned. Truth or falsehood is determined insofar as mutabaqa, its conformity to reality. So we can make the argument to say that their agenda is geared towards facilitating the advent of the Antichrist. We can make that argument, but it is an allegation as far as it stands until it manifests in reality. Then we can give it a conformity of absolute truth. That this outcome is directly related to their works. And while making the argument, we can still figure out certain evidential markers to indicate or give strength to the argument to say that it is definitely them who are behind this. Because we can do some sort of connection to some of the implementations that are taking place that are also signifying or indicating the age of the Antichrist. But anyway, this is a different subject matter altogether. But you can take a look at my book, The One-Eyed Imposter. There is a chapter, I think it is chapter number 7 or 8, that I've put the argument about the pyramid in there and what it signifies. So you can take a look at that, inshallah.
Thank you, Ustad. There was one symbol in the Quran regarding the preservation of the body of Pharaoh, and Allah preserved that body as a sign, right, for us.
Mhm.
And then when they found that body, and I believe it was Ramses II, who was living at the time of Musa alayhi salam, there's a strong argument that it was found at the same time that the Zionist movement was founded, and because Pharaoh was kind of saying, I'm God, right? And the Zionist is saying the same thing, is trying to replace God to being themselves. Now, this kind of language, I know it's not, it's outside of our topic, but this kind of language, is there like some truth that, okay, well, Iran, he was God, and the Zionists is saying the same thing, and we know Dajjal also, when he comes, will say the same thing, that I am God. Can we say that the Zionist is a precursor to Dajjal, for example? Is that true, or is that something false?
Well, the statement, if somebody makes the statement, I am God, who's going to believe them? If anybody comes up and says, I am God, who's going to believe that? There's tons of people who say that. They even try and prove it. They try and do certain things, I can see the future, blah, 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 to prove that I am God. The statement itself is not literal in as much as it being an individual trying to take the place of the divine. And the whole agenda is based around the secular way of life. The removal of divine law from the affair of man. This, the act of secularization, is the act of you claiming that we are our own gods. We're not God. They still acknowledge the presence of God, but they are saying we are our own gods, a sort of a revolution, a rebellion against the divine. And this is a motif that is found in many prior civilizations, like the Greek civilizations and the Romans, who dared to question the gods or wrestled with God. You see, the challenge to say that we are the ones who are in charge of our own destiny. This is what you call In Surah Al-Isra, you will find the first 8 ayat speaks about the Jews who were warned that you will commit fasad in the earth. The fasad is the fasad of challenging divine authority. Because the Jews were one of the first civilizations who were given a concise ordinance with the 10 commandments. The first, what you would call the concise, the kitab, right? The ordinance, the Jews were given that. So there's no way of saying, oh, it's a matter of determination or deduction or whatnot. They were given something that was definitive. And that despite that, they began to challenge divine authority by placing themselves, uluwan kabira, to reach a height of arrogance, to say, we are the ones who will determine what the law is. The rabbinic order is the one that determines what the law is. So this ideology is the precursor for what now you will see the body of the Zionist body now. This is called Zionism. It was Zionism at that time. It is Zionism right now. It is the same idea. It is the same agenda. It is the same foundation. The semantics may change. The titles may change, but it is the same fundamental concept. Now, where does the ideology actually trace itself back to? It traces itself back to Iblis's prime ideology. Shall I show you, O Adam, shall I show you the tree of immortality and the kingdom that never decays? This is essentially what it is about. It is about establishing immortality on our own terms and establishing a kingdom that we control and we maintain to its eternity. So you're removing God's sustenance insofar as your longevity is concerned and the realm that you occupy. You want to remove God's care and providence from that. You understand, this is what secularism is about. This is what the idea is essentially all about. So the person who is now in charge of that is the one who is going to declare himself the leader of this new revolution. I am the king. I am the ruler. I am the sovereign. I am God. That's the ideology. Zionism is not a precursor to the Dajjal. It is the same ideology. It is the same ideology that was proposed to Adam. It is the same ideology that has been proposed time and again. You see the same archetype being presented by every individual who was challenged by a prophet of Allah or a messenger of Allah. Nimrod was like that. Fir'aun was like that. You name it. Each one of them was like that. Jalut was like that when he was challenged by Dawood. You see, every individual who ever stood up and filled in the same archetype to be the ultimate ruler, the most powerful of all. You see, I am the Lord, I am the God. You see, this is, what is your God going to do? I can do this. I can give a man life. If I spare your life, I've given you life. This is what the kind of statements they were making. You see, it's the same ideology, and this is why those who are supporting this ideology, who want to make it manifest with this leader in their as their king, they're digging into the same civilizations and they're trying to uncover the same concepts and the same implementations that were made at that time. This is why you find that their organizations are rife with these kind of symbolism and these type of ideologies. Where are they coming from? They're coming from the same root sources. It's not different. Read the Quran properly and look at these stories. They're not there for our entertainment. This is history documented in absolute truth. Read between the lines and you will see all this it's right there. What's manifested today was the same concept manifested at that time. It was the same challenge that was issued at that time. So the Jews were told, I promise you are going to do this. What those people did, you're going to do the same thing. And they did it. And they suffered for it. You're going to do this twice. They did it again. Now they're doing it a third time. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Asa rabbukum an yarhamakum wa in udtum udna. It may be that your Lord still has mercy on you, because even after they were driven out of the Holy Land by the Romans, it could have been the end of them. But Allah said, I'll give you one more opportunity because there is one more messenger. The seal of prophets is yet to come, with knowledge that none of the other prophets have regarding this finality, the fate of mankind. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, every messenger warned his people against the one-eyed impostor. But I will tell you something that they have not told you. My predecessors have not told their people. So there's still this messenger who is coming, this prophet who is coming, with knowledge that the previous messengers and prophets did not have. So I will give you one more opportunity. But if you return with your fasad, we will return with our punishment. And here we see it happening. This is their fasad. What are they trying to establish? What's this all this thing going on as far as what they're doing in Gaza? It's a semantic that is part of their grand agenda. But what are they trying to establish? Paradise on earth. What are they trying to establish? A kingdom that never decays. Look into Jewish eschatology insofar as what they refer to as the world to come. What is their understanding of Qiyamah, of Akhirah? Because the theme is there in their text as well. But what is their interpreted understanding of it? It is not an afterlife that takes place in a place other than this earth. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we will transform the earth into something other than what it is. The afterlife takes place in a place that is got nothing to do or has no similarity to time and space as we understand it here in this domain. But the Jews are trying to establish a world to come in this domain, an everlasting kingdom here. And this is what their Messiah is supposed to do for them. Is supposed to establish this for them in this domain. So this is what they're trying to establish. All their research in genetics and in cloning and all these things that they're doing. What is all that for? You think it's to treat cancer? Are they trying to do all these medical research so that they can treat cancer? Or they can make a better place for humanity? Make humanity a better place? Why are they trying to go to Mars? What's that about? What's the agenda there? It is just some fancy new technology that they've come up with. I wonder what they're going to do next. We are the stupid ones when we look at these and we marvel at them. But there is an agenda behind that. What is that agenda? What are they trying to establish? They are trying to do this direct challenge, direct opposition to divinity, to establish this kingdom, this immortality of theirs that they're trying to defeat death. You see, if they can defeat death, then they are immortal. Then they don't have to fear God anymore. Why? Because God is the one who holds life in His hands. He is the one with the power to give life and take life. So if they achieve immortality, who are they? They're immortals. They're gods. You see? The kingdom that never decays. They can make sustainable energy. What is sustainable energy? Just think about that. Think about what that means. You think it's just so that you can keep the light bulb on in your house? Because they know that the limitation that is there on these resources, it's not in their control. They cannot regulate that. It's in the power of God. It's in the power of the one who created it. He's the one who has placed, He has a complete measure over everything that He has placed in this earth. They can't do anything about that. So they need to figure out a way. If they can overcome these two things, they are gods. That's the ideology. It's the same ideology at that time when Iblis tried to in Adam's ears. It's the same ideology that Fir'aun had, that Nimrod had, that Nebuchadnezzar had. You name every tyrant that has ever existed in history, in human history, all of human history. Same ideology. Same ideology that our secular world leaders have. Anyway, I'm going into a completely now whole different lecture altogether. So I hope it was a side topic. So let's stop here, inshallah. Unless there's any other question.
We don't have any more questions.
Okay, khairan. Let's stop here, inshallah. My throat is paining now. So we'll convene next week, inshallah, again, and we will start off on the where was it? We will start with the 5 universals, the vocables and the 5 universals. And I'll try and go as much in depth as possible into these. Because if you can get the 5 universals, logic is going to be smooth sailing for you, inshallah. So once you grasp that, everything will be good. So anyway, let's stop here. Subhanaka wa bihamdika. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جزاكم الله خيرا الحمد لله وعليكم السلام وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله